So, I finally turned to the dark side and bought myself a PlayStation 4 Pro, and with it, a game that I've been wanting to play for years. Marvel's Spider-Man for the PS4. And as it turns out, it was even better than I thought it would be. Let's take a closer look. You play mostly as Peter Parker, some 8 years or so into the future where he helps his Aunt May at a homeless shelter while also working for Dr. Otto Octavius with his prosthetic limbs. You can probably already see where this is going. Your first major challenge of the game is to take down Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and his minions. This leads up to your first major boss fight, and it does not disappoint. Admittedly, it took me a few tries to get used to the controls, but once I did, I was swinging circles around the larger-than-life boss. This leads up to your second boss fight against one of my favorite Spider-Man supervillains, the Shocker. This boss has you web-slinging through New York City on a high-speed chase, and I won't lie, I couldn't properly swing worth a damn at this point in the game, but once I finally got the hang of it, literally, Shocker became one of the easier bosses to fight against. As the game continues, you'll come across a mysterious group of individuals with seemingly magical powers, and they're known only as the Demons. These guys will be your main antagonists for the first two acts of the game, and gradually get tougher as you progress through the main story. I can't really talk about the third act without diving headfirst into spoiler territory, so at least for now, I'll keep that one quiet. But in a nutshell, you have yourself an action-packed Spider-Man campaign. What I really love about this game is the atmosphere. New York City doesn't feel like a generic video game backdrop, but rather a living, breathing town. There are tons of side missions for you to engage in along several smaller instances like muggings and drug busts all over the town. This gives you the opportunity to flex your spidey senses and become your neighborhood-friendly Spider-Man. If you're focusing on the main story, it's about 15 hours long, but you can essentially make it as long as you want with all of the side missions and just the general exploration of the city. The graphics are equally amazing. There are no CGI cutscenes, but rather all of the cutscenes are gloriously used with the in-game engine. And the acting within these scenes is phenomenal. I actually feel like I'm watching an interactive Spider-Man movie. And it goes without saying that the soundtrack is superb. I absolutely love how the musical score always ramps up as you're swinging through the city. If I had to nitpick here, let's talk about the third act of the game. This is where I start getting into spoiler territory, so if you haven't played the game yet and you're planning to, this is where you might want to stop the video. Remember, you've been warned. I legit thought the game was over after the second act, since the big bad you're chasing throughout most of the game, a man by the name of Martin Lee, is finally defeated in an epic train sequence. Up until this point, the game largely focused on both him and his demon warriors. However, once Act 3 arrives on the scene, this is the bit where Dr. Otto Octavius flips his lid and finally becomes Dr. Octopus. He releases several other Spider-Man supervillains from Rikers, and the 6 of them all team up against our favorite superhero. This bit felt like it was rushed and randomly tacked onto the campaign. It loosely reminded me of that bit in the Lost World Jurassic Park where the T-Rex gets loose and runs on a rampage through San Diego. Remember how out of place that felt compared to the rest of the movie? Don't get me wrong, I thought it was epic, much like Spider-Man's third act, but it still felt like there wasn't a lot building up to it. It didn't feel as earned as the close of Act 2. Keep in mind that at the beginning of the game, Martin Lee is your ally, and you see him make a gradual turn to the dark side, whereas Dr. Otto Octavius just seems to do a complete 180 and suddenly turns on Spider-Man like a rabid dog. But again, I consider all this to be a minor nitpick. The third act is, as a standalone content, very impressive in its own right, and oftentimes putting you up against 2 bosses at once, which proves to be quite challenging. In fact, I didn't even realize you could self-heal up until this point, and it's desperately needed as even the general combat scenarios become far more intense, and you'll need to take cover more often. I'll admit it. As a longtime Xbox fan, I was extremely skeptical about finally investing in a PlayStation, but now I'm glad I did, and I'm equally as glad that Spider-Man was my first experience with the PS4. I was lucky enough to buy the game on sale, but I'll say that Marvel's Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4 is absolutely a collector's item. So, Spider-Man for the PS4. Have you played it yet? And if so, what did you think about it? Was it everything you hoped it would be? Did it leave you wanting more? And what other PlayStation exclusives would you recommend? I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below, and I'd like to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out of your busy day to sit down and watch this video. I really do hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope you'll consider subscribing for more great content right here on the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful week. Remember to wash your hands. I'll catch you all right back here next time, and as always, I'm the Tyrant, signing off.
I feel like I don't even need to be here. You guys want to sort this out yourselves?